It's the most boring time of year for people and for plants. Let's talk about winter. What's up, fellow plant enthusiasts? My name is Dylan and this is Baines Botanicals. Today we're going to be talking about winter. Winter sucks. And it's one of those seasons where it's cute for a minute, and then after about a month, I'm really just pretty much over it. Now, of course, I'm talking about winter in places where it does get cold and it snows. Of course, in the tropics, it's basically spring, summer all year long, so that must be nice. But currently here, we've been dealing with negative temperatures, Fahrenheit. I think right now it's like -2 outside. And it's also been snowing. There's a lot of snow on the ground. The roads are covered, and I don't know. I don't know anybody that's like, oh, I just love scraping ice and snow off my car in frigid temperatures. It just brings me such joy. So I don't know. It's like I said, it's fun when it's the holidays and it's Christmas and everything, but January and February are just so boring. Like, you just get so lethargic and can't do anything. It's just, ugh. Anyway. As far as plants go, our plants in the wintertime usually go into some sort of dormancy. Now, depending on the plant, that could be like a soft or hard dormancy. Some plants don't go dormant at all, but their growth slows down significantly. So things like epipremnum and philodendron pretty much grow all year long. But like I said, the temperature and the heat and like the light and everything causes them to slow down their growth. So you'll get very big internodes, which is like the space between the leaves. You'll notice in spring when your growth kicks up again that most people will trim off the winter growth just because it's so long and leggy looking. As far as dormancy goes, a soft dormancy is going to be something like a cactus, for instance, where it does enter a state where it pretty much stops all growth. Cacti in particular are interesting because you have to sort of, in order to get them to flower, it's good to give them kind of a winter rest where they have temperatures around 50 degrees, but they still get bright light, which is kind of tricky to replicate in a house. But they like that break. Cacti really like that break from growth because then they come back and they're like, you know, look at my big flowers now because I had that rest. So like I said, most plants enter some state of dormancy. A hard dormancy would be something like a lot of plants that flower indoors will enter like a harsher state of dormancy, like oxalis. If anybody has oxalis, which is like false shamrock, those will typically just die off completely, and just like the root or the rhizome will stay alive, and they'll come back when it gets warm out. But they typically, what's another good one? Gardenia. Gardenia is another one where a lot of people will put those outside in the summer and then they'll bring them in the winter, and often they will really react poorly. They'll drop their leaves and they'll look like they're dead, but similar to the trees outside, they're just dormant. And that's an excellent example of hard dormancy is trees outside, like deciduous trees. They just enter a state where they lose all their leaves, and they stop all growth, and just for those few months, that's it. What else do I got about winter? Humidity in your house is going to be extremely low. And this is because you've got the heater running. The heat from your central air or space heaters or whatever you might be using is going to dry out the air significantly. I actually have a little gauge here that shows humidity and shows the temperature. And right now my humidity is below 30%. And that's just because we've had kind of a cold snap, so we've had the heater running more. I had to plug in a couple more humidifiers just to kind of compensate for that. So hopefully I can get it above 50. I have a video on humidity, be sure to check that out. But typically you want your humidity above 50% for tropical plants. Even for succulents and things, you can have low humidity, but you wouldn't want it like bone dry. That's still not great, because even in the desert there is humidity. It may not seem like it, but 0% humidity does not occur in nature. So yeah, 50 to 60% is kind of what you're shooting for. In the summer, I can usually hit about 70. You don't really want to go above 70 because then you start having like moisture issues with, oh, there's that word, with like your walls and things. You don't want like a lot of humidity on your wall. So yeah, just keep an eye out. These gauges are inexpensive. That's kind of a good way to help you because there are a lot of plants that are sensitive to lack of humidity. So like all of your calatheas, goipertias, prayer plants, things like that, those are very sensitive to humidity. Palms are another good one. And I'm looking around here. I mean, a lot of plants can hold up okay, but they do prefer that extra humidity in the air. So as far as watering goes, you want to water less generally. This is especially true with succulents and cacti. Because they're dormant and because they aren't getting as much light, they're not going to need as much water because water is what a plant uses to photosynthesize, which we haven't done the video on photosynthesis yet, but they do use water, sunlight, and CO2 to actually photosynthesize. So since they're not getting as much light, they're not growing as much, they don't need as much water. The exception to that is if you have a really dry house, and even with humidifiers, you might notice that you do need to water maybe the same amount just because the air is drying out the soil faster. So it's kind of a delicate balance. Like right now, I felt a couple of my plants earlier, and even though I probably shouldn't need to water yet, they are really dry. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and water them. Hopefully the temperature warms up soon and I won't have to water as much. I can kind of pull back a little bit. But just something to keep in mind, especially with succulents and cacti, don't overwater them. Cacti especially, some of them can go almost a month without water just because they don't need it. I mean, they retain water naturally, so they don't need supplemental water always. Just kind of keep an eye on them. Like I said, I've been talking about basically like areas where it does get cold, areas where it does snow. If you live in, say, southern Florida, it doesn't snow, obviously. It does get cooler sometimes. So one thing that you would have to keep an eye on if, let's say, you keep your plants outside all year, you'd want to keep an eye on frost advisories because I know that it will frost sometimes in Florida. And you wouldn't want your plants to get frost on them because that will kill them. It won't necessarily kill them dead, but it will significantly damage your foliage because even in Florida, there are certain plants that don't grow there. Like there are still, they come from a place even more tropical than Florida, for instance. Or Arizona, that's another place where it doesn't really get cold, but on some rare occasion you could have some cold snap and you would want to protect your plants by covering them, bringing them inside, just making sure that they're safe. But yeah, outdoor plants that are native are designed for those kind of cold snaps. Like they can withstand it a little bit. Not a whole lot, but they can survive a little bit of frost and everything. But a lot of our houseplants are not as hardy because they come from places that never frosts, like South America, for instance. So when you're buying plants, because I know that a lot of people have plant sales, indoor plant sales in January and everything, one thing you might want to be aware of is that your plants don't want to be out in the cold that long. Like if you need to go to your car to carry them out there, just be quick about it. But don't leave them in your car that long. Like try to get them home as soon as possible because even a little bit of cold will damage them. And I actually was in Nebraska, which is northern from where I live, and I found a couple of really cool plants. And one of them, even in the time it took me to get to my car and get back to my hotel, had damage on it. It was an Epiprimnum aplissimum, because the other one I had kind of kicked the bucket, so I wanted to replace it. And even in the time, maybe not even an hour, like it started to have brown edges and everything, and it was damaged. So just be very careful. When people at nurseries offer to like wrap your plants in plastic and everything, that's what they're doing. They're trying to protect your plants from the cold. So I want to say that might be it as far as winter goes. Like I said, it's just kind of a sucky time of year. It's fun just for a second, but it's just so cold right now and I can't really do anything but work and the roads are yucky. So, but we're going to get through it. We're about halfway through January and hopefully around the beginning of March, it'll start warming up. But yeah, thank you guys so much for keeping up with me and following and liking the videos and everything. It's been great interacting with you guys again, and I love it. So stay warm if you're in a cold climate, and if you're in a warm climate, lucky you. So I will see you guys very soon. Thank you.